Welcome to another episode of The Modern Hotelier. We're excited to release this episode with Eoin Heavey, CEO and founder of Matra. David, what were some of your favorite takeaways from this conversation with Eoin?
Yeah, well, it's really cool just to kind of learn how, they're helping connect departments and how they're leveraging technology to help hotels, which is something that we are always pushing and striving for hoteliers to start to adopt new technologies and make their lives and the guests' lives easier.
Agree. He talked about breaking down the silos, which I think every hotelier breathes a sigh of relief when they hear that. I also love his background coming from a non-hospitality space, understanding, how his previous influence helped him build Matra in the hotel space as well. So a really fun conversation. Enjoyed sitting down with him, and we hope you all enjoy.
Enjoy it. Welcome to The Modern Hotelier, the most engaged podcast in hospitality. I'm David Millili.
I'm Steve Carran.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David, today we have on Eoin Heavey, the CEO and founder of Matra, a modern operating system built specifically for independent hotels. With a background in both technology and hospitality, Eoin is passionate about helping hoteliers run more efficient, guest-focused operations. Under his leadership, Matra is empowering hotels to streamline workflows, improve team communication, and deliver exceptional service without the need for a bulk legacy system. Welcome to the show, Eoin. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Steve. Good to see you, and good to see you as well, David. Happy to be on.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to go through quick lightning round. We're going to get to know you better, your background, your career, and then we're going to jump into some industry topics. Sound good?
That's fantastic.
All right, here we go. What is something that you wish you were better at?
At the moment, it's golf, but I'm improving at the moment. That's been a little bit. I've been a little bit positive about it, but it's an improving thing. Summer months are good for that, but it's a work in progress, shall we say?
That's good. What's the most used app on your phone?
At the moment, it's Slack. We use that for a lot of our communication around our tech build at the moment. The likes of Figma as well is big. A lot of that stuff is what puts me to sleep at night.
Got it. What's a luxury you can't live without?
A luxury I can't live without. I grew up playing tennis. I like getting a bit of time to get into tennis sport. It's very enjoyable to me, and something that I usually try to make time for.
Okay. If you could trade places with somebody for a day, who would you trade places with?
Who would I trade places with? I would trade places with. I don't know.
Sorry.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. Some people get stumped on that one. That's fine. What's the best piece of advice you've received?
You get out what you put in. I think everyone kind of gets lucky at some stage, but you have to be in the right position to get lucky. I think it's working hard is something that's important, and try to be in the right position when those opportunities come about.
That's great. And what is your favorite city and why?
My favorite city, I recently went to Mexico City. I'm really, really impressed with Mexico City. I thought it was fantastic. And also lived in Barcelona for roughly a year after high school, which was fantastic as well. So I'd say both of them.
That's great. Well said. Well said. So now we're going to jump into your personal background, a little bit more about what makes you tick. So you grew up in Dublin, Ireland. Is that correct?
It is, yes. I grew up there, went to school there. All my family are still there, and we actually have an office there as well. So, you know, go back there a lot. It's somewhere that I really enjoy. Obviously, family time, but also our European operations are based out of there as well. So,
You
yeah.
bet. How did growing up in Dublin shape you into who you are today?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great place to grow up. It's people are very honest. People are it's a great kind of community base, and the likes of schooling and kind of neighborhood. It's very safe. Really got a lot of kind of good kind of morals, good kind of ways to live. And it kind of set me up to be able to I moved to the United States when I was 18, and but until then it was fantastic.
That's
Great.
great. And so you went to UC Berkeley, you majored in accounting and finance, and then you got your master's at Columbia Business School. How did you end up in each of those programs, and why did you choose those majors?
Yeah, so I played tennis growing up. So that was kind of my main sport as I was growing up. represented Ireland a few times in tennis, and was lucky enough to get a scholarship to UC Berkeley for their tennis team. So I played with them for the 4 years in Berkeley, which was a fantastic experience, really, really fun. Had a great time, really good life experience as well. And yeah, then kind of moved to New York afterwards. Went to started originally in PwC in the consulting space, in the tech consulting space, and then moved on from there. But yeah, kind of Columbia was fantastic as well. A different experience. Undergrad to MBA is obviously a little bit different. You should be grown up by the time you're doing your MBA, but not not quite. But no, both great schools, both great experiences.
That's great. So, Owen, you and I both played tennis in college. Sounds like you're a little bit better than me. I played D3, so you could probably take me on the court. But, you also not only played at UC Berkeley, but you played internationally. And you also played at the ITF championship event. Did you have a favorite moment or accomplishment while playing?
I think it's a multitude of things. I think it's with tennis is a tough sport. Individual sports are tough. You're out there on your own, especially for teenagers or people kind of growing. It's a tough kind of to handle mentally. I think that's kind of something that I really really grasp from it. But I think probably two things. I think playing for Ireland in Davis Cup was definitely a highlight. Representing your country is always something that's very very kind of rewarding. But then also playing at UC Berkeley, playing at Cal was something that I was really proud of as well. Both of those things kind of together.
I bet. So, have you jumped on the bandwagon at all?
Not quite, not quite. Not a pickleball player, but I do play paddle. Paddle is something that I
Okay.
do, when I'm down in Spain a good bit and play down there a lot. So I'm not so much of a pickleball fan, but I am a paddle.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's great. So now we're going to dive into your career a little bit, how you became the CEO of Matra. Like you mentioned before, after college, you went down to worked at PwC, then you worked for a hedge fund and then a venture capital fund. What did those early days teach you that you still take with you as a CEO today?
Yeah, so I suppose when I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school, as most people don't. I worked at PwC for a few years and then joined a hedge fund called ESL Investments, which is headed by Eddie Lampert. He's the CEO of Sears and Kmart Land's End as well. So I worked with him for roughly 4 to 5 years, both in Greenwich, then moved down to Miami with him, and that was a really good experience. It was a very tough job, but someone that I really learned a lot from a work ethic perspective and just how he approached his work. And kind of after that, I kind of decided that I wanted to go back to school, that I wanted to get an MBA to kind of round out things and experience that. And that's kind of when I worked with Gotham Ventures during my MBA. It was something that it kind of allowed me to see a lot of companies, to see how a lot of people are doing business, see how a lot of people are operating things, especially on a kind of a early stage or a startup kind of stage, which always had an inkling to go towards. So that's kind of how my kind of my career kind of went until leaving Columbia.
That's right. That leads nicely into this question. So you're the founder of Green Park and the owner of Orwell Investments. What made you decide it was the right time to kind of get into your own business and found your own companies?
Yeah, so Green Park was essentially my first business by myself, and it's kind of the time when the likes of WeWork and a lot of their competitors were flying very high. Essentially, what Green Park initially did was provide a back end solution for a lot of those kind of co working spaces, social clubs, large offices, where we would provide the staffing in regards to the cleaning, as well as kind of porters and housemen kind of around the space, but also a large procurement aspect to it. So we would manage their procurement for everything from paper towels to coffee to snacks, and then also have the people in there to manage them or to stock them, and then also clean the place at the end. So it was kind of a back end solution and we have partnerships with the likes of Irving Farm Coffee and stuff like that, kind of nice, kind of local vendors. And how I kind of got into hotels, which one of our clients was the GM of one of the social clubs. She moved to be the GM of the Mondrian Hotel on Park Avenue, and she approached me asking would I kind of apply what we were doing for her and her last space to the Mondrian. And we started in the Mondrian towards the end of 2018, and doing their housekeeping, engineering, overnight cleaning, stuff like that. And that's kind of how I my first kind of move into the hotel space. And it would be a huge oversight to say that I was an expert, but really kind of learned it as I went. I had a very good team behind me. I hired people that were very strong in the hotel space, and I say for the first kind of maybe 7 months, didn't even try to get another hotel. Really wanted to understand how hotels take, from our perspective, being kind of an outsourced management company. I see, as opposed to my previous model where I might have 20 locations or 25 locations across New York with anywhere from 4 to 5 people. I saw it as hugely valuable that I could have the guts of, you know, 30, 40, 50 people in one location. Yes, margins are a bit lower and margins are always getting lower, but you know, a little bit easier to manage, and something that I saw there was an opportunity in. That's kind of my how I delved into hotels. So
That's great.
Great.
That's great.
Yeah.
And for the past 3 years, you've been the CEO and founder of Matra. How did Matra get started? And was there an idea that you had and a final breaking point where you're like, okay, I have to start this company?
yeah, I think, you know, during when I was working with Green Park, we kind of went very fast. We went from, as I said, kind of one hotel to start for the first 6 months, and but by the end of 2019, we had 14. So we really kind of ramped up, and it was everywhere from your boutique hotels to, you know, like management companies that managed flagship properties as well. So it was kind of a huge multitude of different types of hotels across the city. And you know, one thing that I suppose maybe me not being in hotels when as I was going through my career kind of saw that a lot of the stuff on the operational side, on the back end of things, while the job was getting done very, very well, probably could have been made a little bit easier. Everyone's life on site or at the hotel could be made a lot easier. And just from having communication tools or monitoring tools or something to be able to see what was going on and how, you know, what's Sarah doing on floor 12 and what's John doing in the basement, as opposed to having to run to find them or understand or see what's going on. You have something that's very simple to use and something that, you know, you can really understand what's going on across your property. And then obviously from the management level or the portfolio level, you know, you can obviously see across multiple hotels to understand what's going on. So that was kind of the basis for Matra, and I kind of played around with it for the first kind of year or so with Green Park, and then obviously there was you know, COVID hit with in 2020, which everything there was no expansion or looking for other things. You know, the idea for Green Park was always to kind of have a strong kind of cash flowing business, and but then, you know, get in there and look for opportunities to start other businesses while in the space. That didn't happen during those 2 years, so we kind of just sat in our hands for 2 years. But coming out of COVID, we started building kind of the initial, I suppose, 1.0 version of Matra, using it at our properties. You know, most of my weekends were following housekeepers around hotels in Soho, understanding how they're using the product, really trying to understand how we can make it very, very simple to use. We want the adoption or how, like, we don't want to rock the boat when we go into a hotel. We want to make sure that it's very, very simple to use and very similar to what they're doing before, but just has that kind of digital aspect to it, or that tech aspect to it, which gives you that oversight or that monitoring capability. So that's initially how kind of Matra came about. And then kind of towards the end of 2023, we were starting to build a little bit more. We were starting to get it to the point where, you know, we were starting to get not just use it at Green Park locations. We were starting to get people who would move from a Green Park property, let's say, to another property, would reach out and say, hey, you know, we're based in Nashville. We can't use your management company, but we'd love to use your tech. So that kind of started the realm of, okay, maybe there's a chance here with this business. So I sold Green Park at the end of 2023 and started the process of building a standalone Matra on its own. And you know, that kind of took the guts of kind of 24, roughly towards the end. We started kind of ramping up on the sales stuff, and you know, we're kind of in our second phase of building now. You know, we have a lot of great clients on the Matra side, and we're now looking to kind of expand our offering into a little bit more on the time and attendance aspect, labor management, HR management, you know, a little bit more of that as opposed to just the standard kind of hotel operations side.
That's great. And so for those who are listening, tell everyone a little bit more detail about Matra and what Matra does.
So how I saw I suppose the operations of a hotel and how the tech stack looked for that was that you obviously have the PMS system, which is the kind of motherboard or something that's very kind of sticky. Everyone has one, and it's the kind of staple of the hotel. On the labor side, you also have your payroll management system. You have your PMS system that shows your reservations, holds your credit card information, all of that stuff. And then labor, you have your payroll system that pays the people to service those requests or service those reservations. We felt that in the middle of that, it was a little bit disjointed. We felt that there was perhaps someone was using a ticketing system for engineering, or one system for their lost and found, and maybe paper and pen for housekeeping, and everyone was walking around with clipboard and pens, maybe WhatsApp groups, stuff like that. We felt that we could build a system that would be able to incorporate all of those things. It doesn't have to be all of them, but majority of them, and try to become, alongside the kind of the first big cog of the PMS, second big cog, which is the payroll system, try to become the third big cog in between those two systems, and obviously connecting those systems. I think that's the main point with Matra, is that we kind of want to be the majority of the bricks, not all the bricks, and but we also want to be the cement. So we want to make sure that we're able to give owners, give management groups that oversight to be able to understand what's going on at their properties in a lot easier way, and try to get away from, they have to pull a spreadsheet from this system and put it into their model, and then their productivity report from wherever, and then they get their reservations from the PMS, and they have this model that they use. And I think that's kind of something that we really kind of focused on. What we're focusing on at the moment is building out that multi-property kind of reporting system that will allow them to, whether they're using a Stay in Touch, whether they're using a Muse, whether they're using an Opera, and on the payroll side, whether they're using UKG or ADP or Paychecks, all those apples, oranges, bananas are all being apples on Matrix. So you can kind of plug it in and see what's going on across your portfolio.
That is great. So now we're going to dive into the thought leadership, kind of the industry insights. So, one thing that we have talked a lot about on this podcast is the staffing shortages that have been happening in hospitality. And then, kind of hand in hand with that, it's the rising costs that hotels have seen. Is there any relief in sight here, or any advice for hoteliers on best ways to deal with these two things?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, right? And especially, I think, after COVID, things were like starting to look up. But I think the staffing aspect is an issue. I think workers in hotels are a little bit unique, where you actually have to be on site to do the job. It's a very person focused business. So during COVID, a lot of staff would have explored other avenues. Working in, if they're from Romania and they wanted to work in translation, they could work for Google and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people kind of looked at around different avenues, and not a lot of them come back. So it's a difficult predicament. But I also think it's a tough job. They work very hard, and they're very, very diligent. But I think what we're trying to do at Maitre as well is kind of tap into that. I think Maitre is not necessarily replacing people. I don't think there's going to be robots in rooms anytime soon. There will be at some stage, but not anytime soon. Hopefully, I'm dead by that stage. But but, but I think, what we're trying to do at Maitre is one, help the owners or the managers on the cost side. Making it more efficient at their sites, giving them the tools to be able to run their hotel more efficiently. But then on the staff side, make their jobs easier. And that was something that we really focus on to start, was especially in the likes of housekeeping. They have, where they might have their clipboard before, where they have their 12 to 16 rooms they might be doing on the day. You know, Making it look very similar to that on a tablet. And the value for them on the tablet is that if they run out of linens, or they need more shampoo, or as opposed to typing it into a text group that has 50 other people on it and might get lost, they can make a request, and we'll get, like, all our tasks are categorized into, and they get sent to the person that's handling that for the day. So they feel like they're being heard as well. They're also not having, supervisors or managers coming up to them on the floors, scribbling off one room, adding different rooms. What they see on their tablet is what they're getting. And I thought when we started they might have a bit of hesitation using a tablet instead of a clipboard and pen. It's just natural. But we were kind of pleasantly surprised. They feel heard. They're able to get what they need more easily, and they also see that their request is being seen. It's in progress. It's coming, as opposed to, hey, did you see my text that I sent 30 texts ago? So stuff like that is something that's important. So the mix of allowing hotel owners to or management groups to run a more efficient business helps them, but then also making life easier for the staff on site as well is something that will allow people to help with retention or not necessarily, attract people to come to it if life is a little bit easier, you know?
And so the hospitality tech stack has always been disjointed. It's always been a challenge. We discussed earlier about how, not only is it different tech, it could be different tech by different departments, how they communicate. So, what advice do you have for hoteliers on how to deal with this evolving tech stack and integration as a whole?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of products out there. I think, when we speak with people, I think they say, well, we use this for this and we use that for that. I think what's not going to work is having siloed products for different areas of the hotel. And that kind of goes above my pay grade in regards to, not just operations, in the likes of revenue management and afar. But I think the most important thing is that you're not having to manually make them speak to each other. I think that's a extremely important part of it. And I think, I think a lot of, especially on the PMS side, a lot of the likes of news and opera and stuff like that have got a lot better in regards to marketplaces, to integrations, API integrations have got a lot better. But I think that's the most important part. It's not necessarily, hey, we can track our complaint management really great now on this product, but is it connected to anything? Is it, are you actually using it for something, or are you just using it for the basic function and not actually getting the full value out of it? It's very, very important to make sure that when you are looking at products that they do complement the rest of your product offering or your tech stack. It's that's something that's really, really important, and it's something that is getting better. I think the industry has really, especially, I'm sure you guys have seen it as well in the last 2 to 3 years, people are really focusing on it. And it's something that is really, really valuable, both from a cost or financial perspective, but also from an operational efficiency perspective.
That's great. And I'm really excited to hear your perspective on this one. Coming from the tech space and hospitality, are you seeing any new trends on the technology space? I'll even open it up to general hospitality trends. Are you seeing anything that you're excited about or you think that's going to make a change in the industry?
Yeah, I think it's funny how, like, I think when you look at those things, you have to understand. I always, every time I see a product, I always try and understand what's the customer going to be, what kind of hotel would be interested in this, and I think it's always, what's their goal? Are they a bottom line focus, or are they a higher end hotel where they want to make sure the experience of the guest is really, really high? And I think that's where you get into it, where it's like, okay, well, maybe an AI chatbot for guests is not how St. Regis want to do it, because they want to have that personal experience, or a man want to have kind of silent or ghost kind of housekeeping where you don't actually know anyone's around but everything's getting done, stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting to see how people are adopting different technologies to what they actually want to do. And I think in regards to that, I think you have kind of and again, the guest is the sole focus of all hotels. They want to, regardless of what their goal is. I think it's the guest. So seeing how that kind of, I suppose, that guest messaging, guest experience, concierge type services is evolving is really, really interesting. But then what's even more interesting is, where is it going? Is it going to one person on a phone just picking up and just getting everything done? Or is there a system in there that's actually streamlining all those experiences to make sure they're going to the right departments, to make sure that they're getting handled correctly, and make sure that they're being kind of monitored in that respect. So that's kind of what I'm kind of excited about, is kind of connecting that loop.
Love that.
That's great. And so, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start their own company, and maybe even add in there a little bit somebody who's not from hospitality, who's looking to start their own company in the hotel kind of technology world?
Yeah, it's kind of two questions. I think in regards to starting your own company, I think Green Park it's tough. It's tough to go out there and try and pitch someone an idea and get them to invest in you. And you're kind of starting down a road that's a lot of unknowns. I think what I found very valuable was that with the first business, you're going to make tons of mistakes. You're going to screw up a lot of different things. And I think what's valuable about it is pick an archaic industry, pick something that is simple in nature, but all you have to do is do it a little bit better than the other person. As opposed to trying to go build the next Tesla or something. It's not necessarily where you should start. So I think for a person starting their first business, I think that's very valuable. And I think the experience, it'll be hell and a lot of times, and it won't be fun when you're doing it. And it sounds great and it sounds exciting, but the real truth is that it's not, but you do learn a lot from it, and you can apply that to your next business. You see a lot of people, like a close friend of mine has a VC fund that's solely focused on repeat founders. That's what they do, because he goes, I'm not going to invest the first time, because even if they're the smartest guy in the world, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. And I think the second time around is where you get the real value. And I think that's something that's important. But I think in regards to the hospitality question, you really gotta it's a huge connections based business. I think the nature of hotels, where especially within groups, you'd have GMs maybe moving across different properties and a kind of very transient kind of nature. That means that everyone's meeting a lot of people, a lot of different people. So everybody kind of knows everybody. I think the relationship aspect in the hospitality space is unique actually to hotels or hospitality as a whole. And it's something that really needs to be focused on when you're doing it. So if you can gain that trust from your potential customer, that's where you want, no matter what kind of area you want to get into in hospitality. I think the relationships and gaining trust or friendships within the space is extremely important.
Yeah, great.
Well said. Well said. Well, Owen, we've been asking you the questions this whole time. This is where we turn the tables and let you ask David and I a question.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. Um, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are, and especially just more so in the near term, not necessarily from when you started, but in the last kind of 2 to 3 months. What do you guys see in the space that's of interest to you, and not necessarily from a tech staff perspective, but just trends as a whole, or where you see hotels are looking for things or looking for different. What's making them tick at the moment.
I know we've been talking about experiential travel this whole year, I feel like, but one thing, and David and I actually talked about this on a recent podcast, is the adventure travel that's happening. I was recently in Denver, Colorado, meeting with different hotels, and I know that's a outdoor adventure segment, but all these hotels that I was talking to had these adventure packages or something around the area for you to do with kind of nature and ways to get outside and really explore not only Denver but the surrounding areas as well. And I've seen that kind of all around Colorado, and I know it's a very outdoor adventure state. But that's one thing that I've seen around here, and also, surrounding states as well have really kind of been focusing on more adventures and focusing on really getting outside and experiencing kind of life a little bit more. So that's one thing that I've seen a little bit more. Maybe it's just where I live in the country, but definitely adventure travel we're seeing pick up and kind of be a hotter trend here.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I would say my answer would be a hopeful answer that I feel as if with so many events taking place that I feel like there's a little bit of this shift where the industry is adopting and going to start adopting more technology because it's an industry that's far behind others when it comes to actual technology and embracing it. So I've just kind of found as we've gone through 2025, the events we've gone to have been, whether it be ITB or high tech or, went to the direct booking summit, that they're very well attended. It seems like there's definitely this thirst for knowledge and this idea of adopting these technologies and hoteliers finally kind of, getting up off their asses and saying, hey, we really need to leverage this stuff. It's going to help us, whether it be staffing issues or things of that nature. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic, but I feel like that's one trend that I've seen that there's just been like a lot of well attended events, which I hope leads to a lot of new embracing of technology in hotels.
I think I'll second that. I think I'd see that as well. In the hotel space, given the nature of a hotel, like because it's 24/7, because there's so many people in there, because there's so much going on in a hotel, and even more so in Steve's adventure hotels. But I think what's great is that I think a lot of hoteliers are understanding now that onboarding it's not as difficult as it was. It's getting a lot easier. There's a lot more cloud-based systems that make things a lot more simple to adopt or to onboard. Like we've been pleasantly surprised with the onboarding process with us. It's very very simple, and it's a bit of clients or hotels in this case being more open to it, as you said, David. But it's also that the likes of the PMS systems are a lot more open to it as
Right.
well. They realize that
That's
if
true.
they work with other areas of the tech stack and are more open to it, whereas before they weren't, they're very closed in regard, especially on the flagship side. They see that if they adopt this, they actually become more sticky. And again, as I said before, the goal is first the client, which is the hotel, is the goal, but the goal is to make the guest experience better across whether, or whatever kind of hotel you're, and the guest experience varies based on what type of hotel it is. But, being kind of working together or having everything a little bit more easier for the hotel means that they'll actually adopt the tech more. So, kind of stonewalling people is not helping as much.
That's true. Well, that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. Owen, let people know how they can get in touch with you and how they can get in touch with Matra.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Matra's email. Matra's website is maitre.hotel.com, Maitre hotel.com.
That's great. And before we sign off, just to let anyone know who's curious, John is okay. He's on vacation, so that's why we didn't kick it over to John for the last question. That's our producer, Owen. That does it for The Modern Hotelier, the most engaged podcast in hospitality. So whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you and hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining us, Owen.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It was great fun.
You made it to the end of The Modern Hotelier. Thanks for watching or listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Modern Hotelier Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you know a good guest, sponsor, or have media needs, feel free to reach out to us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. Thanks and have a great day.